Okay, I think it's good. You good?
I'm good.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. All right, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Regular Revolutionary. I'm here with
The self love doc, Dr.
the one
Taylor
and only,
Cummings.
the one and only. Yes, and starting off, I guess we'll just address the elephant in the room. The Self Love Doc, aka Taylor Cummings, was just on the Grits and Eggs podcast, hosted by the one and only Deontay Kyle. And just want to, what I'm saying, ask you how that experience was. What's been the like response that you've received?
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. So definitely shout out to Grits and Eggs, Deontay Kyle, Big Ice Cup Cat. It
Mm-hmm.
was truly incredible, remarkable. The platform itself has just been doing numbers, not only, but it's just been doing a really transformative thing, I think, for Black folks in the Black community, really understanding how to bridge the gap between intellectualism and the culture. I think there's been a gap in our understanding and what it really means to be an intellectual, and a lot of folks, kind of shy away from certain things or don't recognize like the inherent power that we have in terms of our abilities, our insight, our life experiences, and how to really transform that and to really have important, necessary conversations in the culture. So I was really honored to be included in the conversation, and I was able to talk about my dissertation research. I was able to talk about a lot of the things that I think are really important for us. And the response and the feedback has, like, I couldn't have asked for a better response. People were really receiving. And I think it just feels really good to be accepted and received, for your truth, being able
Mm-hmm.
to just talk very candidly about your life experiences. And it's less about like, this external validation piece, but just understanding like how deeply insightful our community is and how they understand and recognize the importance of our stories and how we're able to use it, how Deontay's using it on his platform and how I'm using it in my research and how that's been able to translate online for me as well. And so it's just been remarkable to connect with brilliant people, smart people. Like the comment section is smart. It's probably the smartest comment section I've ever I've been able
Yeah.
to like read through. And so like it's really great. Like I've heard a lot of people's stories who are
Mm-hmm.
similar to mine, or people who are questioning, Christianity or on the spiritual path and really, seeking some guidance and clarity. So it's been dope, and just being able to watch it back. And I got notes and thoughts about it. We are, scheduled for a part two. So I'm
Come
excited
on,
for
come
that.
on.
And I think there's going to be a lot, that we're going to be able to sort of continue to expand the conversation on. But yeah, I've loved hearing other people's stories. I'm grateful for the response that it received. And yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better situation. I couldn't have asked for a better conversation and a better person to do that with. I think me, sort of living in this academic scholarly space and him
Yeah.
being so grounded and rooted in the culture and just seeing how people have responded to him has just been dope. And so I think bringing those worlds together is necessary and important for us to continue the work that we're doing. And so people like you, and so it's just dope. So I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to be able to talk about things very openly and candidly and talk about the things that we don't always get to talk about or we're deemed crazy for talking about, or, it's spooky and it's inappropriate or it's antichrist or it's all these things. But no, this is our reality. Our
Yeah.
reality is,
Absolutely.
is science. Our reality is psychology. Our reality is the political systems that have been placed in front of us and imposed onto us. And so we have to really understand how to navigate that, like for real, for real, for real. And not just in a way where it's like, well, we just have to do it, because this is our livelihood and this is survival. And this is, no, we have to understand and be strategic and
Yeah.
understand what strategy really looks like. So I'm also interested in seeing a balance between that, because we also can't just be putting all of our knowledge out on the forefront, because the
Come
internet
on
is for
now.
everybody. So we
Talk
have
about
to
it.
kind of start to get underground, get a little bit low, start to get a little bit quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And so really figuring out what strategy looks like, because it's directly tied to our survival. So understanding these systems are important. We have to understand how these systems were developed, how they manifest, and how they play out in our lives. And if we understand this is an oppressive state, then we have
Mm-hmm.
to understand what it looks like to be non-oppressed. We have to understand how not to oppress ourselves. I know that they were talking about self-oppression in their last episode, and so I think it's just really, really important for us to be able to break these things down. And so I appreciate that he's bringing on people like me, people who are experts in their field, people who are passionate about the work that they do, so that we can start, expanding the conversation within the culture.
Yeah, no doubt, 1000%. Pop your shit. Real expert in the space, for real. And I
I
think recently I saw a video. Shout out to Think Peace Tribe. He had did a great video talking about how like hip hop is going back underground. I think Smino said it first, and everything along those lines. And just kind of thinking about how everything that you're describing with kind of like independent media and us like taking back the mantle in terms of like who's spearheading these conversations, the like guidelines and boundaries to which we are like positioning ourselves in that conversation. I think it's been, I mean, really breathtaking to see how we've kind of navigated and adapted, like amidst the changes from TikTok, and how people are now going into podcasting. And I think some people are streaming a bit more and things like that. So
Yes.
now it's amazing. And I hope to continue to add to that conversation with what we got going on here. And don't worry, we will touch back on that Christianity piece. It's just too important to just leave there. But
Yep. Really quickly though, you mentioned a really important part about media.
mhm,
Media has been used as a weapon against us. It's been propaganda, and it's distorted our identity, and it's distorted the messaging around who and what we are. And so
mhm,
it really is a matter of reclamation and being able to take control of the narratives that are being spewed about our people. And so media is going to be an important medium for us to really be able to communicate with ourselves, communicate with others, and just put out the messaging, because it truly influences our behavior. It
yeah,
influences very deeply your psychological perspective, your worldview, your ideology, all these things that really inform the way in which you show up in the world and how you navigate in the world. And so our decision making is critical at this point as Black folks. It starts in your home, it starts in how you live in, and then it starts with how you interact with other people. And so we really have to get clear on who we are and what we are. We have to really be mindful of the media that we're ingesting and who's funding it, who's promoting it, who's producing it, and what is truly the purpose and the function of this. We say it's entertainment, but entertainment at what cost? Because we are
mhm,
truly living in a self-destructive system, and we can't continue to perpetuate our own harm and to continue to put ourselves in these positions. So decision making is critical. Values is critical. What do you value? What is important to you? Because you can't say on one hand, oh, this system is shit, this system is da da da, it's oppressive, but then you want the money, the power, and the fame. So you really have to know what side you on and what you're trying to do. And media. Walt Disney understood that, and we understand
mhm,
the impacts of that. And I made a video the other day. I'm in the National African American Museum. You talk about Walt Disney owning artifacts. So
yeah,
this is deep, and it spans industries and sectors, and we really have to get a hold of media for ourselves and understand what that looks like. So print, film, whatever you're doing, it's like it's how we're communicating, and it's important with the messaging that we're putting out there. And it's not about respectability politics. It's not about trying to pretend that we this or that. It's about really being self-empowered. And so
mhm,
self-empowerment is really important to me. Obviously, self-love is incredibly important to me. And self-love comes less from the taking bubble baths and lighting candles, but it's really about a real deep reckoning and deconstruction and decolonization, because there is a difference between decolonization and deconstruction. I'm not necessarily a deconstructionist. You have to deconstruct in order to decolonize, but it
mhm,
really is moving away from these systems and these mindsets, and these beliefs and these mythical truths, in
yeah.
order to really free yourself and free your mind and to decolonize your mind, because that's going to allow you to decolonize your land, your environment, and your people.
Absolutely, 1,000%. And everything you just
Mm-hmm.
said resonated so deeply. But what I took from it initially, at least in the first half, was nothing without intention. You know what I'm saying? Word to Solange, like really recognizing that we ran the race of getting our foot in the door and becoming big in these industries. And we've seen, okay, this ain't the way. You know what I'm saying? We've gotten to the pinnacle of whatever these things are, and we're still seeing that we are running that same race. We're running into the same issues. So approaching it differently now with more intention. But yeah,
Yes.
okay. We talked a little bit briefly when we were like prepping for the show about the self love doc, the name, the brand. Who is the self love doc? What is she on?
Yeah, so the self love doc is Dr. Taylor Cummings. She's
Come
an
on.
educational psychologist, and she really wanted to understand what it meant to love oneself in a system that taught her not to. And so, really understanding the deep questioning and unearthing, and just the deep work that goes into really understanding yourself. And so, during my work and coming into grad school, I, was doing the work, and it just came to me one day, and I started really developing this framework for what it means to love oneself. And so, it as intelligence does and as knowledge does, it really is a spiritual experience. And
Hmm.
so I started developing this framework. I'm still working on publishing it, but really understanding what it means to do this thing. And so I came up with something, and it has a lot to do with seeing yourself, accepting yourself, and trusting yourself. And
Okay.
so being able to have vision about who and what you are when you've been given all of these distorted images and perceptions of you is really, really deeply important. So having not a vision only just for your future, but also a vision for who and what you are right now as you are right now. And then you
Yeah.
have to be able to accept what you are right now. Not what you want to be, not what you think you are, but nah, what am I really? Who am
Mm-hmm.
I really? And you have to really be comfortable with that. And you have to have a radical acceptance for that, no matter where you are in your journey, whether you like yourself or you don't like yourself, or you think you like yourself, but then you start to find out that you don't actually like yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
really having like a radical truth telling with oneself. So I do a lot of mirror work personally and things of that nature, but just really understanding like who you are, seeing yourself as you are, having a radical acceptance for where you are in your journey. And then once you have that acceptance, you really have to trust yourself. And so
Yeah.
really understanding what it means to lean into your intuition, lean into your natural instincts, lean into the things that you know are true to you. Because we have a lot of chitter chatter, we have a lot of noise, we have a lot of things that we think we're supposed to be doing, or I'm supposed to do this, or I should do this, or I should do that, or the church says I'm supposed to be this, or my mom says I'm supposed to be that. So really understanding who you are and getting real with yourself, you know? And so
Yeah.
really it's about deconstructing and decolonizing from anti-blackness, understanding the anti-blackness that lives within us, how that manifests in our life, and just really understanding what it looks like to have like this radical, truth reckoning with who and what you are and where you want to go and what you want to be. And so that's sort of how it came to be, me just in the living room, in my master's program, just doing the work. And
Yeah.
sometimes, like I said, thought is divine,
Mm-hmm.
thought is spiritual, knowledge, intelligence, wisdom, those things are spiritual, and it kind of just comes to you. And so I just went with it. So this was probably like 2019 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It came to me, I made a handle, and we just kind of kept rocking with it. And I would get sometimes, well, what's self-love? I don't really see you doing a lot of the things that we think it's supposed to look like,
Right.
right? And so for me, I think the first step is truly education, and it's really
Mm-hmm.
informing ourselves and being able to give just positive representations. I've even noticed that me showing up online, people are like, you just being here, just seeing you, like, you got a doctorate, like you're doing this, like you're in school, like you're encouraging and inspiring me to go back to school, or to even just go to school, or to really, so thinking about what that looks like. And I'm not even like super gung-ho advocate for going to school, because we know the process of miseducation. My
Come on now.
dissertation,
Pop your shit. Pop
yeah,
your shit.
my dissertation was titled "The Miseducation at Taylor Cummings," so I understand the complexity with that, but I
Yeah.
also understand the power of education, and how education is a deeply spiritual experience in and of itself. And so the pursuit of knowledge is also the pursuit of oneself, and also the pursuit of God. So really understanding like the origins of philosophy, the origins of the academy, the origins of a lot of these knowledge systems, especially if we go back to ancient Kemet, understanding
Mm-hmm.
the temples, it was school.
Mm-hmm.
You was going to find God, you was going to find yourself, and that was through a pursuit of knowledge and wisdom and information. And so understanding what that looks like, and how what it means to truly dedicate yourself to a topic, to something that you really care about, something that you want to understand, because it's truly a vehicle to finding yourself and understanding your true purpose. And so I'm in the process of organizing all of these things in terms of what this looks like, in terms of helping others.
Yeah.
So I've been able to, find a roadmap for me that works over all these years of questioning. And so now it's a matter of like taking everything that I've learned and understood over time and translating that to, to help others and help others find their own pathway and things of that nature. So the self-love doc, we come in hard, and I'm really, really grateful, for the experience and for the exposure, and, to be able to connect with other people and things of that nature.
Absolutely. And everything that you were describing again, like just hit me in a de-tumblerification of like, how meditation. I think somebody said the other day in a video I had seen, like India is to millennials what Japan is to
Oh yeah, I saw
Gen
that. I
Z.
saw that. I saw
And I was like, they
that.
cook. Like, nah, 1000%. Because the way things become like bastardized and, through capitalism by its very nature, they like grip a hold of the things that, can be easily manipulated and repackaged and capitalized upon, and just kind of force feed it to people in a way that, again, lacks that intention. And then you have people out here who put forth the narrative that they are doing the work because they do take their bubble bath. And you should take a bubble bath, yeah. Now,
Yeah,
no one's
yeah,
saying don't take the bubble bath.
there.
Take the bubble bath. But on top of all that, like really sitting down and unpacking the trauma that you've experienced in your life thus far, asking yourself, why do you like what you like? And does it make you feel fulfilled? Is it reciprocal? The relationship that you have to the things that you enjoy, the career that you want, is it to appease, like you said, society, your mother, all of these things? And again, I think that sort of self-love is, word to everything you just described, it's African. It is communal, it is ancestral. And recognizing that that process is fulfilling in a way that, and we talked about this a bit more, and we'll get to this, that even takes you beyond the mindset of like blackness to a space of like true
Yes.
reclamation of who you are as a
Yes.
person. And you're able to acknowledge your blackness and
Yeah.
take that and always have love for that, but know that you are more.
Mhm.
um so
I'd
yeah, I
even
mean,
say I'd even say it goes beyond, it's beyond your personhood. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
really getting to the crux of what are you made of? And like
Yeah.
really understanding like how do we get here? What are we doing? And like we're light. We're
Mm-hmm.
photons.
Yeah.
Like we're electron. Like this is what we are. And so what does that mean? Because the light is what animates you. The light is what energizes you. The light, and that light came from somewhere else. We talk about the primordial soup, so
Mm-hmm.
really understanding our universe,
Yeah.
is important. And I also did put in the chat, like, yeah, bubble baths are necessary.
Come on
You
now. They
got
are.
water is cleansing, water is healing. Like water is probably one of the best things that you can do. Get by some water, go look at some water, go take a shower. Some of my best thoughts come from the shower and the bath,
Mm-hmm.
because it
Yeah.
really is a healing ritual, and you really understanding what that looks like and what that means for you is important. And so you can really ritualize anything in your life. We talk about romanticizing life, but really get into the spiritual work, and you'll start to
Yeah.
see like you're gonna be doing some kooky kind of crazy things up in your house, but you gotta let it flow,
Yeah.
like
No doubt.
dance around, do whatever you gotta do, but like you gotta do what you gotta do and what you're led to do and what you're called to do. And so I think that's very important to tap in.
Yeah. 1000%. And I think along with all of those things, to me, it's like I don't know, it's just bringing ourselves to a point where we're like not in this flimsy belief of what they've told us to be, because you run into these things, these conversations where it's like your ideology like is met with something that it can't go by because it's flimsy, and
Mm-hmm.
it's fantastical. And I like to allow people to know that there is magic in reality. There's magic in the things that are real, and you do not have to cling to myths and stories and all these things that are beyond your grasp, when there is so much magic in what you can see. And it's like people are telling you to avert your eyes to keep you from your power, to keep you from the things, the real work that you can have, that's tangible. And I think a lot of times for Black people, we have been, by virtue of the slave trade and having had Christianity forced upon us in the way that which we have, we find ourselves in a space where we do cling to these fantastical things. And when we're met with um that sort of opposition, the entirety of who we know ourselves to be and the things that we accept is now called into question. That can lead people into some scary spaces. But
Yeah.
when you don't allow that to fully take you into that route, and instead to recenter you into something that is more real, that is built over time, that has evolved, and that has led to you being who you are today, you come out of that so much stronger, so much more like secure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
No,
but
I agree with you. And I think it forces us to ask the question, what is truth? What is
hmm
reality? What is real? How do I know? And so, really getting into that is a wormhole in and of itself. But then you mentioned something around myth. And I do speak I have an honest critique around myth and mythological systems, because myths have been interpreted oftentimes as real and as truth and as reality, right?
hmm
But myths are important to us. Myths are our stories, the stories that we tell. They've been used historically to be able to translate very complex ideas and concepts to the human understanding. And so at the same time, I critique myths because of how they've been weaponized in our system and in our culture and in our society. I also understand the importance of them, and I value what our ancient folks have been able to do. They've given us some incredible stories that are detailing some incredible, deep mathematical, scientific concepts. And so,
hmm
really understanding like how to translate that, but we got lost in it. We started getting caught up in the myth. We started getting caught up in not really digging deeper. The story was enough for us.
hmm
We loved that idea of, like you said, the fantastical reality and things of that nature. And so it
Yeah.
didn't cause us to question deeper. What does this really mean? What is this
hmm
really trying to tell me? And so meaning, I feel like we've really moved away from meaning and things having meaning. Everyone's like, nothing, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter. It
It
does,
does.
And
It
so
always
really
has.
understanding meaning is so critical to our reality, because meaning is literally what makes life. You might
hmm
have a thought. Deontay had asked me on the podcast, he's like, were you embarrassed? I showed up to class naked. I was having a moment of psychosis, a moment of spiritual reckoning. I was having whatever I was having at that time. He's like, were you embarrassed? And I was like, no. And as I was reflecting on that conversation, I was like really thinking about, okay, what really causes embarrassment?
hmm
Right? It's like the internalization of shame. It's the
Yeah.
internalization of I did something wrong. And it's the internalization of, oh, I'm going against social norms.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can create that. If I thought about it long enough and I thought about all the reasons why maybe I should feel shame or embarrassment or what, but then I'm like, but why? For what?
Mm-hmm.
Like literally for what? And so you do that to yourself. You create that story and that narrative in your mind for yourself and you internalize it and it concretizes in your reality. And that's what breeds fear, shame, resentment, all these negative impacts and negative feelings. Like, but fear, yes, it can be used in a positive way to protect us and things of that nature. But shame, embarrassment, um, yeah, I don't know. I don't always know that it's the best thing for our psyche, you know? So, but it really caused me to really think about that in terms of like, yeah, you could really feel any feeling or emotion if you allow yourself, if you allow your mind to go there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, absolutely not. And I didn't feel that. I felt empowered in a way, you know?
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so good. And I think that segues well into kind of your experience being a
Yeah.
Black woman in like higher education, the journey that has been for you, especially like the spiritual kind of like path that you've taken with it all, kind of finding yourself as a person amidst the research that you are conducting for others. You've kind of like found yourself in a way. So what's that experience been
Yeah.
like, kind of bringing it to a head, now you are
Yeah.
Dr. Taylor Cummings. Yeah.
Yes. Now that I'm Dr. Taylor Cummings and I reflect on my higher education experience, I will say overall it's been good. I will say I've had a lot of hiccups, especially starting out. I had a full ride scholarship to play soccer. I ended up being injured with an injury that I actually realized I had my entire life. I just thought
Mm-hmm.
everyone's legs hurt when they ran. I'm
Yeah.
like, my legs hurt. Like everyone's legs hurt when they run. I just thought that was normal. I'm like, why do y'all want to run marathons? Like that
Right.
doesn't sound fun. And then when I got to the collegiate level, I realized, oh, I actually have something called compartment syndrome, which
Hmm.
is swelling and pressure build up in your shins and your calves when you run. So it's overexertion of your muscles, and there's not a lot of space or room for your muscles to expand, and so it causes pressure buildup. So your legs can literally like explode, your muscles can atrophy, all these types of things. And so I realized that that's what I had been dealing with my whole life, and even like when I was in high school and stuff like that, I'd be like, my legs hurt. Like playing on my club team, like my legs hurt. Like, oh, you just need to stretch more. You just need to do this. You just need to do that. So really being able to see the themes of, people not really taking your pain seriously, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
your emotional pain or your physical pain, like people kind of like just kind of brushing you off, not really, yeah, like I said, like not taking it really seriously and having to endure, and just the fact that I was able to play that long, with legs like that is really incredible to me and fascinating to me. And
Yeah.
so the dissolution of my scholarship and me moving on from that space, really caused me to question like, okay, what do I like? What am I into? Like, who am I? Because
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing sports my whole life. I grew up, doing different things in terms of like the arts, dancing, singing, acting. I was in a lot of extracurriculars. I had, different exposure to different things in terms of like I played basketball, I did soccer, I did a lot of different things. And so I had some good exposure, and soccer ended up being the thing that I landed on, ran track in middle school and things like that. But
Yeah.
okay, this is the thing. This is the thing that I've been doing. And that wasn't even a life goal either. Like it got to the point where, you're in 11th grade, your soccer tournaments start turning into, college showcases. So now college coaches are coming to your games, and it's like I don't really know what that means, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And then I started getting emails, and my parents are like, "Oh, do you want to play soccer in college?" I was like, "Sure, I guess so." Like, like
Right.
so go
Naturally,
D1.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just sure, let's go, let's run it. So I do that. And so then after not having that, it's like, okay, well, what do I really, really like? So I ended up going back home, to community college. I went back home to VA after that, went to community college.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say it was just a big, big transition in terms of just trying to get my grades back up. My grades had tanked my freshman year. I was sad, dealing with a lot of things emotionally and things of
Mm-hmm.
that nature. And so I had a 1.2, like a 1.6 or something crazy like that. So I had to like dig in. Like I was
Yeah.
in the trenches. And so I
Absolutely.
realized it takes a lot of A's to bring them grades up. I'm like,
Ooh.
it only take one F, it only take one D to tank you, but it takes
Mm-hmm.
like 5 A's to get it back up. So it was like
Absolutely.
a lot of just like, taking my classes. I even had to go back and redo a lot of classes and things of that nature. And I will say, shout out to my mom, like shout out to me having like a strong family and like a supportive system, because I wouldn't have really known how to navigate that. And so that's another thing too, is like learning how to navigate FAFSA, learning how to
Mm-hmm.
navigate like all these types of things that you have to understand, grades, advising. A lot of people don't get a lot of great advisors, but me and my mom were going through my curriculum. Okay, you need this many credits, you need this, you need that, and just really making sure I was like on track with everything. I was on my timeline. So I definitely like shout out to her for sure. And so after I ended up, getting my grades up, I, was able to graduate with my associates. And then it was like, okay, where do
Well,
I want to go? Where am I trying
yeah.
to go? And I was looking around at different schools, and I ended up in the HBCU land.
Come on.
And I was a little nervous because
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't been in this sort of environment ever. I grew up predominantly white spaces. I was, socially, I had black folks and black family members, obviously, and things of that nature. I had black friends and stuff like that. But I was still very much in a Eurocentric reality, a Eurocentric world. So like me going to
Absolutely.
an HBCU for the first time is really me like immersing myself in black culture and black history in a way that I had never experienced, never seen, never witnessed before. So my experience there was radically transformational. And it really was just me going to school. I was older by then. I was like 20, 21 years old around that time that I transferred. So I'm just ready to get in, get out. Like, I'm not really trying to do too much, but it was a great experience for me. And this is the experience that I did talk about grits and eggs. And it really was a deeply spiritual experience. And I don't know that I really truly understood that at the time. But in
Yeah.
terms of me reflecting, like you said, it was a journey to self, and education provides that. I was never someone who knew what I wanted to do, knew who I wanted to be. I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be this when I get older. I just knew I wanted to help people. I
Right.
just knew I wanted to help people. I was like, I want to help people. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what career field that is. I actually vehemently did not want to be a teacher because I didn't want to be poor. So I was like, I don't want to be a teacher. But
Now I'll
here I
take the
am.
shot. I'll take
No,
the
no,
shot.
no. I'm teaching, I'm educating, I'm doing
Yeah.
all the things. And my mother is an educator. Like the very thing I find that we try to like resist from
Mm,
usually is where our calling
boy,
is.
ain't that the motherfucking truth?
Yes. So that, and here I am. So I'm an educator, I'm an educational psychologist. And so that is what we're supposed to be doing. Teaching is inherently spiritual. My teaching philosophy that I typically use in the classroom comes from Dr. Wade Nobles, and it's Insaka Sun Sun, and it's
Hmm.
called Touching the Spirit. And
Okay.
it's a matter of truly engaging like the inherent talents and gifts and the spirit of a student, and
Yeah.
understanding that they have everything that they need in this life. They came into this world with everything that they need, and it's our job to help draw that out and to create the environment for them to explore and to become aware of that for themselves. And so my educational journey allowed me to do that, because especially as someone who didn't say like, oh, I want to be an engineer, or I want to be this, or I want to be that, I got to explore. I got to take
Hmm.
different classes within the humanities and just really understand my perspective on life. And that was most important to me. I've always been like a natural born philosopher, and I always understood that the way in which you see the world impacts a lot of things for you. And I really wanted to understand why, like why the
Hmm.
world was the way that it was. And so education truly, truly, truly allowed me to do that. I think my experience also, I became my own God that day. Like
Yeah.
I really truly did. And I think I had to, especially because it happened around Easter. I think the association when you're deconstructing and decolonizing from religion, I needed another story. I needed another narrative associated with Easter. It
Yeah.
wasn't just that there was a man who came down to die on the cross and save the world and all these types of things. It wasn't just this resurrection, but it was truly this crucifixion and resurrection of oneself, and understanding
Mm.
that Jesus is a symbol for you and
Hmm.
your
Absolutely.
pathway to consciousness. And so I became that for myself. And so now my psyche has another experience to associate itself with to help me, down that process. And so that's truly what I think, was one of many reasons for why that experience manifested in my life the way that it did, because it gave me something else to understand and to connect to this story that had been given to me.
Yeah. Oh my God, you said so much. First of all, there needs to be a separate conversation we have just about Virginia specifically, because I believe Virginia is a very like deeply spiritual place. It being like home to Jamestown, so on and so forth. I do
Yes.
believe there's so much there that like shapes and contextualizes
Yes.
the experience of people who come out of that state.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. And as a Virgo, I agree. Like this Virgin Virgo energy, like
hmm.
understanding what Virginia is, the inception, like you're so right.
Yeah,
Like we were the first landing place.
I'm
So
I'm
really
telling you,
understanding all that. Yeah,
it's so
it's
much
it's
there.
dark.
Here you go. Here you
Oh
go.
yeah,
That shit.
we just lost. Yeah, oh,
Here
there
we
you
go.
go.
Here we go. I gotta hit that button every couple minutes. But yeah, and I think you also said some amazing things surrounding initially when you were describing like your pain that you were feeling and like not having the wherewithal. Am I frozen?
Yeah, you are frozen a little bit.
Of course I am. Yep. Hold on. Okay,
All right, you're back.
we're gonna try this one more time with this little webcam, and
Okay. If
it's
not,
just
this
not doing it.
doesn't. This looks fine.
It's just not doing it. So here we are.
Okay, you're good.
Yep, I knew it was gonna happen. But yeah, you also said something about the normalization of pain, and kind of speaking to this point of like you didn't know what you didn't know until you are presented with new information. And I think so many young Black children specifically, because we are asked to be supernatural in so many ways, it's like pain or discomfort or all these things is just, that's what it is. Like, yeah, you feeling this thing, you have to get it done though. You have to go out
Yeah.
there, play the game, get the grades, do the thing. And the like the like disconnect you have from your body with years of that experience of like, I have to push past this, and not in a way that acknowledges the pain and is like aware of it, but that like suppresses, and how that
Yeah.
impacts like so many like, yeah, especially young Black athletes, like emotionally, because you can't have that in your sports world and not have some of that present in your personal world as well. So I
Yeah.
think that's another piece also.
Yeah, and it is, and the thing with pain is that it pain and suffering is inherent to the human experience. You're
Hmm.
on earth, you're going to experience pain, you're going to experience loss, you're going to experience suffering. So it really is a matter of understanding the nature of duality. And
Yeah.
and really this path is around, transcending that duality, returning to this oneness and understanding that there is nothing without the other. And so
Hmm.
I think understanding and learning how to integrate pain. This is alchemy. Like we're
Yeah.
dealing with an alchemical process. And so we really have to understand what this is from a scientific perspective, a spiritual perspective, an emotional perspective. Like we're taking our pain and turning it into greatness every single day. That's what our people have done over time.
Hmm.
And so continuing that tradition is important and not getting bogged down because it's a mental game. And this is what I see a lot of people, they get stuck in the anxious loops, the depression loops. We get stuck in these things. And I've experienced all those things and panic and depersonalization on all the things, but it's mental. And so
Yeah.
it's really understanding like what we're dealing with and like how to transmute. This is a process of transmutation. And so turning one thing into something else. And so we really have to understand that. Like we're alchemists and like we get
Hmm.
caught up in like the, oh yeah, no, but what does this really mean? And it's a lot of pain, it's a lot of tears, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of deep work that's excruciating. It's excruciating pain. And
Yeah.
so you do come out stronger on the other side. And that's what they say. Some of the happiest people have experienced some of the worst, deepest pain that you have because that's the power of transmutation. So what goes
Hmm.
up must come down. And it really is understanding that duality and that balance.
Absolutely. And I think this also leads back to like the kind of like the way that Black people worship and sit in their relationship with God, even in the like religion of Christianity, in the space where like you get to a space where you worship the pain. Like you not only recognize it as an aspect of our reality that it has to be like taken on and made peace with in some capacity, but now you're kind of in a way like seeking it, and you put yourself in space of struggle and strife in ways to kind of not
Yeah.
punish yourself, but to break through that in some sort of way. And the
Yeah.
recognition that like you don't have to kind of like worship it to work through it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
I think it's the both and because I find, yeah, sometimes we are addicted to chaos and pain and self destruction,
mhm,
right? But then there is like, you start to bring it on, like, because you already know, like, when you hit that rock bottom, like, you finna go up, or
mhm,
like, that you're like in this type of like state of energy. And so, yeah, it's like, it's a both and it's understanding where you're at during that
yeah,
time. Like, am I inviting chaos and destruction and pain and suffering into my life because I'm comfortable here and I don't really know what it feels like? And for me, like on my mental health journey and all these things, I got to a point in therapy where it was like, okay, like I actually don't, like, I'm always waiting for the next shoe to drop. Like
mhm,
life is good. Like life is good. There's no chaos, there's no drama, like there's nothing bad happening, but we're seeking it and we're waiting for it because we're so used to it. And
yeah,
so also getting into the mindset where you are in a state of peace and calmness and understanding, and things are good and they're allowed to be good and you deserve that. You
yeah,
deserve that. And like getting into the space, like for me, where it's like, okay, no, this is what life is supposed to be. I've been through the woods. I made it through the fire,
mhm,
And so now I'm out on the other side, and what does it look like to have heaven on earth? And
yeah,
so then being able to walk in that and not creating your own hell. So I think there is a balance because we do self-destruct and we do
mhm,
put ourselves in situations that probably aren't the best for ourselves. But then we have to understand, okay, am I doing this, or is this just a part of the process? And then understanding, okay, have I made it to the other side? And being comfortable in that, being comfortable in the peace and the goodness is important
absolutely.
too.
And I think the point that you like really with the both and is like that level of discernment
Yeah.
and ability to recognize nuance and so on and so forth. Yeah, and I think that's something that is not given. to especially our children enough,
Mm-hmm.
is this aspect of recognition of like both things being true at one
Yeah.
time, and that's
Yeah.
in some way feeling like unsatisfactory because of how long we've been like set in this position of either it's this or it's that. And even going back to like,
Yeah.
you made me think of Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of the Black Civilization, like reading that and getting to a space where you recognize we've been in a space of like travel and running and like so for centuries post, colonization, so on and so forth. We were dealing with our own things on the continent, and now getting to a space where we're having conversation about this type of self-love,
Yeah.
and the like in our DNA, the epigenetic kind of like fear and right waiting for the next shoe to drop. Like that's something that has been present in our DNA for millennia.
Yeah.
So like moving ourselves to a space where it's not it like we're more conscious of it. We're not just led by the subconscious fear and acting in like best practice, but like intentionally navigating life in a way that lends us to our liberation, our most pure form of creativity, our defense, and all of those things. So
Yeah, it's a reprogramming of the subconscious mind. Like we have to deal directly with our the subconscious mind is so important in this journey, and
mhm.
it's been impacted in so many ways, like you just mentioned, and we have to really program ourselves. Like you have to get in tune, and that's what meditation is. That's what a lot of these practices are. Like you're reprogramming, restructuring, and reorienting yourself to your new reality. Because that we have system one and system two. We have the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, and a lot of us lean into the conscious mind, but that barely controls anything in our system.
Yeah.
The subconscious mind has so much power. And so really understanding that and leaning into that and tapping into that and understanding how to reprogram and reorient yourself is definitely important.
Okay, so I think we got to do it now. We got to get to like even now, like talking about like in the top of my mind, I don't know what's like screaming inside me, like knowledge reigns supreme. Shout out KRS-One, and
KRS.
just this movement of like intellect and how like subconscious thought, if like left unchecked, can lend you to a space of immense destruction, not only for yourself but for everyone around you. And I think a prime example of that is Puff Daddy Sean No Diddy Combs, um, and everything that has transpired over the last, I don't know, 20, 30 odd years. But let's talk, because I know recently there's been a documentary put out by the one and only Curtis Jackson surrounding Sean Combs and his indictment and the time he's serving, and kind of like his involvement with Tupac and his upbringing and how he was molded into this person over time that kind of led to
Yeah.
everything that we know him to be now. So
Yeah, I think we got to start with this snapshot of hip hop, right? Like you
mhm,
said, we have been in a system and in a society where Black folks have always been the struggle for liberation, all these types of things. So hip hop was a medium and a form of expression of all those things in terms of our pride, our power, our courage, all the things, right? And so
mhm,
really understanding that that was a space for us to be ourselves, to express ourselves, things of that nature, rhythm, poetry, like really understanding who and what we are, like in
yeah,
self expression. And then we had like corporate, right? Corporate hip
mhm,
hop. You can come and make some money, da da
of
da. So
course,
you either went underground or you went with the Russell Simmons and you went that way. And so really
mhm,
understanding then what happened when you start to now take something, a pure art form, and then you start to corporatize it. You start to make it a different sort of thing with media in terms of understanding how it's been weaponized against us and things of that nature. So we're already at this crux, right? This crossroads of like, where do you go? What do you do with this? Do you want to go make millions, or are you going to go and kind of struggle and keep it pure or whatever? And not to say that it's not pure making money or whatever, but it really is understanding that, okay, we have two sort of worlds of thought, or schools of practice when it comes to hip hop. And so then taking it like, and even if we lean into like the whole KRS stuff with like the gospel of hip hop and like really understanding like what it is and how it can be used as a tool for our growth and our liberation and our spirituality and things of that nature, I think is really important. And I think we've seen how it's been used for destruction in our community, right? And so when it comes to Puff Daddy, Sean Combs,
mhm,
for me, it was disappointing and it's upsetting, and at the same time, I'm not there. I don't know. I can't speak on the facts of the matter because I can't tell you what happened or what didn't happen. But what I do know is, as a consumer of hip-hop, as someone who is hip-hop, right? Because hip-hop is a matter of being conscious of your awareness, conscious of your movements. and understanding like what this looks like and what this means for us, because he was an example of someone who was able to come in and have monetary success, and that's what it looks like for us to really be able to be free, or that's what we thought it meant to be
Black
free in this
capitalism, buy
system,
back the
right?
block.
And so
Yeah.
it's like really trying to understand, okay, now what does this role look like what does this really mean for us, and what does this really like mean, because it's like for me it's sad because we grew up on this stuff, and it's like,
Hmm.
okay, if you remove everything that this man touched from the hip hop scene, what are we then left with, right?
Yeah.
If we remove everything that all these people who played a part in it, right? Because you do create a monster, right? It's
Hmm.
created through social programming or whatever. We know his lived experiences, based on the information that we've been given. What does accountability look like?
Yeah.
What does it really look like for us to reshape and restructure this system? Because we see what it's done. Young black men are getting killed, they're getting murdered, they're being led down certain paths. Like, but it's also at the same time we're talking our truth. Like, this is what's
Hmm.
happening in the streets.
Yeah.
This is what we're experiencing. This is the trauma,
Hmm.
So it's like, but who's benefiting from it? Who's profiting from it? What does this really look like? And so I think there's a larger question around the industry. I think there's a larger question around the art form itself, the purpose, the function of it. And just really understanding like what it is that we're doing, because if we understand the power of the spoken word, if we understand the power of sound waves, frequency, and that's what Diddy was talking about towards the end of all his work, was vibes,
Hmm.
love. And that's the truth, like
Hmm.
regardless of his personal life, his personal experiences, what he was involved in, like that's really what it comes down to. And I think understanding how to start to reframe that in our practice and our in reclaiming hip hop for ourselves, because we know, who I was gonna say, we know the Jews, we know
Hmm.
like who's really at the top of this industry and who's making the money, and what's going on with Clive Davis and all these types of things. Just really understanding what's going on. Like, what does it
Yeah.
mean for us to really take hold of this for ourselves? And I even know people have honest critiques about KRS and his relationship with Bombada and all these types of things. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of harm and a lot of pain going on. And during my time at UNLV, I hosted an event called the Gospel of Hip Hop, and I had a theologian on the panel, the real Merkaba. I had two Grammy artists, and I had an organizational psychologist who does work on the industry. So she
Yeah.
actually would interview video vixens, and
Mm.
she would get their experiences. Dr. Payal Sharma, and so she's a professor at UNLV, and she does incredible work. And we were able to hear her experience and the research and the data. And these women and their stories are incredible, and so understanding like who's really protecting whom,
Yeah.
and what the black woman is and how the black woman's been used. And yes, there's something, empowering about our beauty and empowering about our body and empowering about all these things. What really are we sacrificing when we see the results, so I don't know. I think it's a very complex thing we're dealing with in terms of like money, power, image, media, even the whole thing where they say he overhyped the event. He had all these people come, 9 people died at the event.
Hmm.
What does that really look like? How does fame translate to reality?
Yeah.
And so I really think that it's calling into question a lot of different things in terms of our power, our money, what young men are doing, what young women are doing, the pathways that black folks have when it comes to music and media and politics and power. And so really understanding how all those things come together. And if it's not hip hop, then what is it going to be?
Yeah.
I think we have to maintain hip hop in a lot of different ways, but it's like, what does this structure really look like in a way that's going to be empowering for the people, and that's not going to continue to contribute to self destruction and harm?
And I think going back to where we started with like intentionality and questioning, and you brought up like accountability, and to me
Mm-hmm.
kind of thinking of like sitting in that space of critical thought and asking, okay, why do we want to be such like giants in this industry,
Mm-hmm.
what does it look like to be, systemically ostracized, going back to like genres being created as a concept just to, keep black artists out of spaces that had like begun to become established. Um and sitting with like, how do we reclaim what it is that we deem as success within our creativity and our art forms? Because now it is, you're successful if you're known, you're successful if you get a hit on the radio, you're successful if you make these like or achieve these milestones along the path that they've set up. um And I think I even go back to like something like the Chitlin Circuit. Like, what does it look like if we really have a space? And I think this goes back to why HBCU is important. Like a space where we decide like this is what we value, and we
Yeah.
cling to that, and we adhere to that value system, and we revere it, and all of those things. And that's like kind of how we build our own without their influence. But I mean, even there, we know that HBCUs are rampant with like cases of um, domestic violence, sexual assault, so on and so forth. We just had the instance not too long ago with a young lady from Clark, Atlanta, who experienced this thing with a black man who was attending Morehouse College. So we bring that back to trying to create an industry, which initially you go back to like his interview or not interview, his internship with Andre Harrell, I believe, and
Yeah.
how that molding really created the beast that is, you know,
Yeah, I was about
who
to
we know
get
him to
into
be.
that because they were framing it, and this is just off the documentary, but they were framing it like scholarly, dweeb, nerdy, not
Hmm.
cool. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, I'm looking at the picture. I'm like, he look kind of cool to me. Like, he look
Hmm.
cool, but like maybe he's smaller. He was, he came from private Catholic school, all these types of things. And so it's really understanding, okay, did we not see intellectualism, like we said earlier, as cool? I
Hmm.
mean, like, it's cool to go to school. Like, school is cool. Being
School is
smart is
cool.
cool. And so, what
Yeah.
does it really look like? So, when they put him through this cool boot camp, what were they teaching him? What does it
What
mean to
does that
be
entail?
cool? Yeah,
Yeah.
what does that entail? So, that was really interesting to me. And like you said, like, I wasn't familiar with his Howard experience and him being a dropout. And so that's why I say like school can be protective in a lot of different ways, but as you like harm also happens on college campuses. Kids are killed on college campuses.
Hmm.
And we just had a shooting at UNLV 2 years ago where three of our professors were murdered in cold blood on our college campus. So at the same time, understanding what it looks like to be safe, to be protected, no matter where you are. And I don't even know if safety is guaranteed, right, in this reality. But thinking about what does it look like to protect young black children, young black artists, and even understanding A&R and artist development. Everyone's saying, okay, the industry is suffering because we don't have artist development anymore, right? You're not really putting them in no incubator, no training, no system. Because even when they were, if you think about Usher and Justin Bieber and all these people, they're going through the system, they doing what grown folks is doing. This ain't
Hmm.
really safe for children. So how
Yeah.
do you really take the talent and really put them in a safe environment where they can grow, understand themselves? Because this is what's required. This is what I think. They need to be in an environment where they can understand that they are talented, incredibly talented human beings, right? But they
Hmm.
also have to go through deep self discovery because when you get to that point, when you get the money, the fame, the power, you have to know who you're going to be and what you're going to do and how you're going to operate and how you're going to navigate and how to be responsible. They need financial literacy development. They need a lot of different things, right? But it needs to be for children,
Yeah.
especially if you're taking it. There's no reason 11-year-olds need to be at no Diddy party. There's no reason no 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds is looking at fat asses bouncing in their face. That should not
Yeah.
be happening. It's not cool. You're not getting kudo points because you're losing your virginity at 9 years old. That's abuse. It's child abuse. And that's
Hmm.
what's been happening. So we don't have safe systems or safe structures for talent, period. No matter if you're 25 or not. And so really understanding what's going on and how to create safe pipelines for talent development and to foster and nurture and to understand how to protect people from being exploited, because that's also what happens. There's a
Hmm.
lot of exploitation. People see you, they see money, they see dollar signs, right? And so it's really understanding like how to navigate that, how to inform and educate the parents. So the
Hmm.
parents are involved. Like you need parental involvement in schools, you need parental involvement in the industry. You need a real safe ecosystem. So I know that I'm putting my child in your hands. This is the same thing going away to college. My
Yeah.
dad came to see me. He said, "This is not the same daughter I sent you in the fall. I don't
Hmm.
know what y'all got going. This is not my daughter." He said there was like a dark cloud over you. And so really understanding what that looks like and what that means when you put your child somewhere, you're trusting these people. And so we have daycares that are going under fire because they're harming and abusing children.
Hmm.
Where can we go to send our child to get some real development, to get some real work? Where we don't have to be worried about what's going to happen to them in your care. And so
Yeah.
I think it really highlights his story, highlights, what that looks like, and then even what he's gone on to do, in his role when he
Yeah.
became an adult and he's bringing in, new talent, whether they're adults or they're young children. So I really think we just need to truly reevaluate the structures that we have because we all say we want a safe world. And we all want good music. We
Hmm.
want good music. And
Yeah.
so what does that look like? And we're going to get good music when we're better people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
so
that's
it's like, what
good.
are we talking about, what are we doing? And so I just think it's really a restructuring, like a real restructuring of our systems and how we're understanding talent development, how we're understanding artist development, how we're really nurturing and providing safe spaces for talent to flourish.
Yeah, 1000%. And I think that point you brought up, I think that was just perfect. We're gonna get better music when we're better people. And I think I saw an interview a while back where like I think it was Most Def was asked like, where's hip hop gonna be in the future? They asked how's hip hop. He's like, ask where the people gonna be. The people, hip hop's gonna be where the people gonna be. You know what I'm saying? And I think going back to what you were describing about him going to school, cool school, and him going to Catholic school, and in a big city like New York, where I think going back to what we were talking, well, what I brought up earlier around like um, how we decide what we value, and how a lot of times, at least initially, if you have any amount of like what they say racial self-esteem, you're gonna say, okay, I'm just gonna value what's black. What's black is just whatever isn't white. So if white people are the
Yeah.
doctors, I don't want to be I don't want to be a doctor. If white people are the lawyers, I don't want to be the lawyer. You know what I'm saying? And now especially in a city like Atlanta, or looking at PG County, you know what I'm saying, like Upper Marlboro and Maryland, you see people who have black people in these spaces who they're also corrupt in a way. They're also
Yeah.
not living at the community. Now we need more nuance because we're trying to find simple solutions, and that's okay. I think people like to poke holes and things and be like, oh, well, where did that get us? You get as far as you can, and if that ain't working, you go again. You keep building until you find something that's sustainable, that works. It's not a foolproof process. It's supposed to like consistently evolve. And I think going back to his upbringing, like in Catholic school and so on and so forth, and feeling as though he needed to completely invest himself in the street shit. And something, my biggest thing, I swear to God, and being from no tea, no shade to Nova, but I'm gonna pop my shit real quick. The black men that I've met from Nova have tried to, in varying ways, similar to that, not to that degree, to emulate blackness for some sense of self-esteem when it comes to these schools, and they recognize you didn't live the way we live. You know what I'm saying? And there's the level of like what's his name, Logic, too black for the white kids, too white for the black, in the
Yeah.
sense that you question whether or not your black experience is a valid black experience, and it is 1000%. But what I understand, being raised in such close proximity to people that lived that street shit, that didn't make it to see past their 18th birthday, you know what I'm saying, that what they value was good shoes, good clothes, girls, fast cars, so on and so forth. I saw that they didn't want to live. They did not want to live that shit, and that's the piece that I don't think a lot of people don't understand. Like the way real street folks interact and what they value and so on and so forth, they're gonna push people aside. That's why there's this culture of the nigga that's good on the basketball team gonna say, "Hey, bro, you don't supposed to be out here. You don't need to be
Yeah.
around us. This ain't what you got to do." And they recognize the cards that they've been dealt in a really philosophical way, and in a space where they're like, "I accept this is my truth, and I'm gonna live that. I'm gonna protect you from that, and so on and so forth." But what the people miss is that, like, because it's a subtle conversation that's like unspoken. Um, Whereas if we were to have more intentional conversation around like this is what's taking place, and you don't have to emulate these things. We want you to go get that degree. We want you to like know that we have value as well in the streets and everything, but we don't want to live like this. We want to eat
Yeah.
good food. We want to have a green park. Like niggas would love to have a park. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, they might want to smoke a little bit, but niggas want to shoot up everywhere.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. No, but that's what I think is so important when the OGs come and talk and come and share their story and tell the young men, young women, like stay out the streets or do this or do that, or this is the path that I went down and this is what it looks like, and really try to encourage us to go down different pathways. And then that's the thing is like our pathway can't only be the white man system, right? It can't
Mm-hmm.
only be to go to these schools. It can't only be to go into this workforce. It really has to be us creating our own reality and creating our own systems and our own pathways. And so what does that really look like, right? But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, because there's still harm that you experience being in these environments, being in predominantly white spaces, being in predominantly white universities, in the workplace, corporate workplace, like there's a spirit murdering that happens,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we're catching it on all fronts. I'm suburban. I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up Nova. And
Mm-hmm.
so really understanding like you're absolutely correct. Like I didn't see that. Like I come from an immigrant father who moved to New York, moved to Brooklyn. My mom was born and raised in Brooklyn and they moved down to VA, had me and my brother. So I only saw certain things like when I went to go visit certain places, but it wasn't like my reality, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, in that regard. And so understanding that, like, but there were still things that I experienced in my reality that were harmful to me. You know, it wasn't
Yeah.
the same level of danger, I'd say, in terms of like physical danger, but it was dangerous and harmful to the psyche and to your identity development. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so all of those things are deeply impacted. So it's understanding like the holistic plight of Black folk and where we are, no matter what type of neighborhood you grew up in, no matter what zip code you in. You know, we're all like fighting different types of battles in this system, and so then it's really a matter of understanding, okay, what does this really look like for us to get out of this situation? You
Yeah.
know, because it can't just be to go to the system. Like it
Yeah.
has to be us creating our own institutions. Like we're nation building, we're institution building because it's necessary and it's required.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. And I just like envision the future on my Martin Luther King shit where, niggas from the suburbs and niggas from the
One
street can sit down and have a
day.
conversation, real shit. To sit down and
Yeah.
like talk
Yeah.
about like what do we value, what's cool, what's not cool. Like, yeah, in
Mhm.
a lot of ways, the streets had to like find some sense of value in some capacity.
Yeah.
Like you see it, I see it in the classroom all the time.
Yeah.
The nigga that can't read is the funniest kid in the class because he has to
Yeah.
be. Because
Yeah.
to have some value in the space, I can't compete with y'all
Yeah.
with what y'all wear. I can't compete
Yeah.
with y'all with the grades y'all get. But I'm be the funniest nigga in this room. But
Yeah.
can't nobody jump higher than me. But can't nobody,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. And sitting down and having a real reflective conversation around like, I didn't even want to do that. Like, I just
Yeah.
wanted y'all to see me and like value me. You know what I'm saying?
I think
And
that would be
talking
so healing. Sorry.
it's no, I agree. I agree. Go ahead.
I was saying, I think that would be so healing, like bringing those worlds together, because, like you mentioned, I think there are things that both parties really recognize and respect in one
Mm-hmm.
another, and so it's really understanding like how to pull out the best, because especially growing up in impoverished conditions, like that's where a lot of our genius, our ingenuity comes from, that out of necessity, out of
Yeah.
like having to do with what you have, and so and
Mm-hmm.
there's a grit and there's a fire and there's like a dog that lives in people because they trying to get out, and
Absolutely.
so and this is the thing that I do credit. I appreciate this about myself. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't grow up in an environment where I had my needs met. I had a great childhood, but I still got that dog in me. And it's like
Hey, talk
really
about it.
understanding like
Talk about it.
that it's a warrior spirit,
Yeah.
we got there's warriors. Some of us are
Yeah.
warriors, and so understanding what that is and understanding how that lives in you, and I think hip hop contributes to that too.
Mm-hmm.
Like even my dad, sometimes I get to talking my shit, and even when I was younger, he'd be like, "What are you doing?" Like, I'm chilling. Like, stop saying that. Like, he come in my room, "What you doing?" Chilling. I'm just chilling. I'm chilling. He's like, "Stop." Like so our language, our verbiage. My dad's also West Indian, and they were
Mm-hmm.
colonized by the British. You feel me? So I feel like
Yeah.
there's a lot of that with it, like
Mm-hmm.
speaking proper English and things of that nature. But it's
Of
like
course.
I get to talk, and he's like, and I'm like, "Dad, this is how I talk. Like I'm black. Like I'm black.
Mm-hmm.
I'm well spoken. I enunciate. I can pronounce. I can do all these things. But at the same time, like my natural tongue is a little looser. Like my natural
Absolutely.
tongue is this is me. And so when you start to think about who you are when no one's around, who you are when nobody's looking, like who am I really? Like
Mm-hmm.
really getting in tune with yourself. Like who am I actually? Like am I emulating? Am I da 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 da? Because I'll even have like as a black woman, people will say certain things to me because I was never one of them. Like period. Like I was not like that was not my
That's
language.
not your
You feel
shit.
me?
Yeah.
Like it just wasn't. Like I just didn't really pick that up. Like I respect it, but it wasn't. It didn't become a part of my day to day. Right.
Yeah.
So people will say certain things to me. I guess thinking like because you a black woman, like this is how you talk and this is how I'm trying to connect with you. But it's like that's not really how I get down. Like that's not,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like really understanding like, am I supposed to be this way because I'm this way, because I'm this archetype, And so it's really understanding like we've been given oftentimes a lot of caricatures of ourselves, but
Mm-hmm.
there's truth in it, right? So there's truth in this reality and these images and these representations of who and what we are. But then we see how they get weaponized and used against us. And so really understanding like who we actually are at the crux, because individuality is very, very important, and we're losing that in a lot of different ways,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to the internet and aesthetics and who are you and what do you look like and how you dress. Like I can tell what side of TikTok people are on based on their language, based on their dress, based
Yeah.
on like how they show up in the world, because and there's something to be said around belonging and style and
Mm-hmm.
community, right? That's how punk rock, all these types of things get started, right? Through like how you express yourself, right? So
Yeah.
there is something around community and having shared interests and shared styles and shared interests. And so, but where is the balance? So
Mm-hmm.
we just have to always be, cognizant of that and always just make sure, like, am I buying this because I actually like it? Am I wearing this because I actually like it? Am I speaking like this because this is actually me? But
Mm-hmm.
we're so inundated with social programming, it's really hard to know what's what. And so on my journey, also to get back to the whole self-love doc thing, where all this came from, I really had to understand who I was. So
Yeah.
I stopped makeup, I stopped adorning myself, jewelry, all these things. Like I just didn't do anything. I was just like, I don't care about nothing. It was like liberating to come out the house not feeling like, oh, my hair had to be done,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I could come out frizzy. I have big curly hair. I need to get back to her because I feel like I'm losing my powers with the straight hair. But,
I'm
but
crying.
it's like I can walk out of the house and I can just be like, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be a performance. And that was really liberating and really important to me. But I also saw how people treat you differently, especially as a woman. You come out the house, baggy clothes, baggy hoodie down, you get treated differently than you come in a nice little dress or this or that. Right. And so it's a stark contrast, and especially when you're choosing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're choosing not to subscribe to these social norms or these social expectations. And so I'm putting myself in a different sort of social class, like
Yeah.
intentionally, like, okay, I'm not wearing makeup, I'm not getting my nails done, I'm
Come
not
on.
doing this. So I already know where this even with women, right? They may think that, oh, she not really into this, or we ain't really cool like that. It's like it's hard
Mm-hmm.
sometimes because we see each other through these things, right? If you have certain things, if you show up a certain way, then you kind of feel safe, and if
Yeah.
someone's not really participating in that, then you don't really know kind of where to place them or where to fit them or how
Uh-huh.
to connect with them. And so I really felt like as a woman, I was like putting myself in a different, like reducing my social class in a way, like intentionally. And it
Yeah.
was really like difficult because you notice like, yeah, men aren't really looking at you the same way, or sometimes they are, but also realizing like, what is this about? And like moving away from like the male gaze and like not even wanting to be under it, especially when you've been, you know, socially conventionally attractive. And it's like since 9 years old, 8 years old, you're nervous walking past a group of men because you can
Mm-hmm.
hear the chatter, and you're a young girl,
Yeah.
until like you're much older. So it continuously happens. And so really understanding this relationship around male and female relationships, how we interact with each other, what men think the purpose and the function of a woman is in their life. Do you even befriend women if you don't think you have a shot with them
Mm-hmm.
sexually or romantically, right? Or you feel like, oh, if we ain't fucking, it ain't no reason for you to be around,
Yeah.
And it's just like, what's really going on here? How do we really repair the male and female relationships in our community? Because I think we desperately need that, because we do need protection. Even the example that you brought up with the Clark Atlanta young woman, there was mad people out there. I
Mm-hmm.
was
That ain't
like,
do a motherfucking thing.
I'm like, y'all could have stopped that man. Like y'all
Mm-hmm.
just looking, and then it's like, okay, you trying to. I was like, y'all wasn't strong enough for me. Like y'all wasn't
Yeah.
doing enough for me. And so, what is it really like to protect one another and protect each other is important.
No doubt. And I think, man, we gotta redo this again
I'm
because
like, you
I know
need to
on
tell
some
me.
real shit. Like I think there could be a whole conversation around like the pop the balloon, yeah, crazy. What the fuck? But like
Yeah.
really what that does though, like where is that from? Like on some real shit. Like, yeah, it's crazy because it's platformed in that way. But this shit we always done did. Like on this surface
Yes.
level, that like deciding whether or not a person has valued, whether to like deem them respectable, whatever the case may be. And I love the fact that you point out that like intentionality and like reducing your social class in a sense, because like I know now that I have the fucking privilege to talk how the hell I want to talk, to dress how the hell I want to dress, and to go where the hell I want to go. And who gonna say
Yeah.
something to me? I didn't been
Yeah.
to their schools, I've succeeded in their rooms, and that's like a position that I am like taking on.
Mm,
Um, fully aware, I'm fully cognizant of that,
mm-hmm.
so as to show younger people that
Yeah.
school is cool. You can be a nigga and be in
Yeah.
these spaces, and you do not have to like sacrifice your verbiage. You do not have to sacrifice the way that you dress, your style, and the subtle ways that these spaces and people there who I will say like innocently enough are not intentionally trying to make you feel bad, but it's like in a way, it's like a envy. Like, who said they get to do that when I got to do this? They told me
Mm-hmm.
So like I intentionally had these locks now. I intentionally like
Yeah.
have the tattoos and so on and so forth, and sit in a position in a space where um I want to like on my name shit. I want to make that the regular revolutionary. Like
Yeah.
it's got to be that. Like it can't
Yeah.
just. I fuck with the folks, and I had this there's a group out here in Atlanta called Black Male Initiative.
Okay.
And every like once every month they sit down and have a real like table talk conversation. Folks from like every place of Black life, and we just talk. We shoot the shit. And I only went one time. My fault to the niggas out there. I gotta get back. But we was having a conversation, and it got to like an older Black man saying like, he quoted the guy, "How you dress will be how you will be a dress." I said, "Okay, nigga.
And it's
Okay,
true though, because
nigga."
people do treat you differently, and
So look,
you have to decide.
well, no doubt. I said, "Look, heard you. And that's real. Like
Mm,
if." on your time and like say you gotta talk, you want folks to show up this way and address you a certain way, cool. But if I want to come in a Nike Tech, or if I want to come in a polo hoodie and sweatsuit with my breads on, I'm fitted, nigga. Like I bet I pay more for this than you pay for yours. So let's talk about what do we, what does this represent? What are we actually on?
Yes,
Um,
yes,
but
yes.
all that to say, yes, there needs to be conversation around like and it's something I've been thinking of as well. We talked about like how black men like position themselves as women. A lot of times niggas like to claim black power until it's pro black woman, until it's pro black trans, until it's pro black queer, pro black kids. You know what I'm saying? And that nigga never been pro rec in his life. But it's readjusting that conversation to like, again, your philosophy, your ideology is flimsy because you're gonna run into a point you claim you're pro black, but that shit don't hold up. So what are you actually after? Why are you
Yeah,
after that? You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Because you think it's going to position you in this space that's in proximity to whiteness, that's in
yeah,
proximity to white men who have presented you this image of like immense freedom, Wolf of Wall Street, Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm on top of the world. I'm doing whatever. Woo, woo, woo. Then you get Sean Combs, like, and that's
yeah,
the fucked up. No, it is. It's like the trickle down of like I'm just gonna do this shit just a little bit, but it's a,
yeah,
what I'm saying, it's a
yeah.
slippery slope.
And I know like a lot of folks who do subscribe to like this respectability politics, it is rooted in survival, right? It's rooted in
Yeah,
this idea that like I have to do this or I'm not going to be accepted or respected or supported and included. And that's the definition of belonging
yeah,
in educational psychology. But understanding like what that looks like and how that impacts you. Right. And so, and it's a constant struggle because you do feel like, oh, I'm supposed to do this or I'm supposed to look like this. And then you have to ask, well, why?
yeah,
So I think you're right. Like this is gonna take deep work and a lot of conversations to really unpack that because we do it to ourselves. We are like,
yes,
I've seen all these people like, yeah, I don't wear sweatpants out the house. Like you shouldn't be walking out the house with sweatpants. And I'm like, yeah, you can miss me with that. Like
yeah.
I'm gonna be in some sweatpants for sure. But for some
No
people it
doubt.
makes them feel better. They feel better about themselves. And we have to understand why.
And I think going back to your point, it is a privilege to sit in that space where you and I, educated in the career, can be in that space and can
Yeah.
risk losing our kind of social, clout in that capacity.
Mhm.
But for somebody that's trying to build, it's how do we set up a space where they can do that, but prior to getting to that point, prior to enduring
Yeah.
all of those
Well,
things.
I see myself kind of like in a middle point right now, right? Because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I've done all this stuff in terms of like schooling and things of that nature, but I'm also like now in a turning point and I think a moment of like elevation and building as well. And so it's like when you're now coming into this like other side and you're really trying to transcend, and it's like, okay, I can't help the poor if I'm one of them. Shout out Jay-Z. And Jay-Z is
Come on.
also another sad, sad, sad one. Like, these are
Ugh.
my favorite people. Tory Lanez, one of my favorite people. And it's like, I don't know what's going on. Their music has done so much. If you
Mm-hmm.
really listen to them, even Beyonce, she's always under fire, especially with her connection and relationship to Jay-Z.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
you can't, do we have ethical billionaires?
Is there
do
such a
we ha-
thing?
is there such a thing? And so it's like, okay, if I'm trying to make some change in this world and I gotta make some money in this world and I'm trying to be a multi-millionaire, billionaire, what does that really look like? Am I gonna, like, how do you really do this? Or is
Mm-hmm.
it a matter of us really stepping into our sovereignty, really stepping into creating our own system, our own nation, and really deciding like this ain't what we doing. We're not participating in this. Or
Mm-hmm.
do you have to participate in it just for a little bit until we actually have the time not to?
Yeah.
So it's constantly going back and forth with our value system. And that's why when it comes to the conscious community, when it comes to the conscious path, like it's tough because you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I participate in? What does this look like? Are my values impacting and preventing me from actualizing success, quote unquote, and what that looks like and what that means? So I'm still on the pathway, but I think at the end of the day, it's all about intention. And KRS would say that,
No
the
doubt.
universe don't know no good or bad. The universe don't know good or evil, good or like it doesn't know that. It knows your intention. And so what is your
Mm-hmm.
intention? What is your intention? What are you doing this for? What is the purpose and the function of your action? What does your heart say? And
Yeah.
that's why follow your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Follow your heart. And one of the things too that came up in the Grits and Next conversation when I was watching it back, I kept watching our hand movements and I'm just very observant.
Yeah.
But Deontay, when he talks, he does like a lot of like, things like this. And so
Uh-huh.
I just kept thinking like, it was reminding me of like why we close our hands when we pray, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
closing the circuit, right? This
Yeah.
energy circuit. And so, and he was always doing a lot of this, right? When he was talking, and like this was reminding me of like electromagnetism and just like our aura field and our
Oh
energy and
God.
like how we resonate, right? And our heart resonates the largest amount of like frequency. And so
Mm-hmm.
really what it means to like tap into that energy, and the energy that really creates our reality, like we are electric beings, we are powered by that. And that's really where our wisdom, our knowledge, our information comes from. So really leading with your heart, following your heart, there are neurons in our heart, like that is knowing. So we have three brains, our brain, our heart, our gut. And so really understanding how to tap in and to really understand who and what we are, and how to be guided and to be led, and if you believe that your steps are ordered, like you have to really tap in and pay attention and listen to that subconscious mind, listen to your heart, and be able to walk in that and know that you won't be misled. And so that's why I think it's so knowledge of self is incredibly important. It is critical because
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be tested. You will be tested and you will be tried, and that is what it means to be refined by the fire. And so
Yeah.
you have to really understand who you are and what decisions you're going to make, because we're going to have a lot of decisions that need to be made, especially when it comes to our people and understanding who and what we are and what side of the fence you live on.
No, that's a fact. And I think earlier on, bringing it back to like when we was talking about like ease and like the normalization of pain and so on and so forth, and how we worship it and whatever the case may be, I think this is the position where that level of like willing to withstand the fire is it's so necessary, because otherwise you will choose that life of ease. You will sit in a position of simple truths, and I'm going to go along to get along, and when my ideology is met with resistance, I'll pivot or I will disassociate long enough to be able to get back on the path that was working for me before. And I think everything that, and this could be a whole nother thing, talking about sports and how that molds you as a person. Because I swear to God, like if I did not play football from the age that I was like 3 years old, 4 years old, I wouldn't like feel comfortable and ideologically, academically sit in this space of opposition and knowing full well that, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. All I got to do is get low. You know what I'm saying? And how that applies in this capacity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's
But
mental
yeah.
fortitude. It's definitely mental fortitude. Like you have to be mentally strong for this life,
Hmm.
period. So I definitely agree with you for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, we have some other things to chop up about. But I mean, I'm trying to be mindful of the time, and I want to leave some room for what's the name? Some Q&A. So to the
Okay.
people in the live, feel free to tap in and like ask whatever questions. We'll just like have free flowing talk
Yes.
now and chop it up by
Anyone have
whatever.
any questions? Yeah, this was so fun. This was a great conversation.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And I knew it was gonna go places that like I wanted to have the list of shit, just
Uh-huh.
to have some general direction, but I wanted also to be like natural free flowing conversation. So yeah, no, I
No,
appreciate
this
it.
was fun. I was like, you got me yapping today.
No, I was good. I mean, it's just so
Off the
much to talk
E.
about.
Yeah, there really is. It's just the balance of it. Like, it's really just the balance of like really trying to understand. And when you mentioned ease as well, what we often sometimes think is the easy thing is sometimes the hard thing. And I also still
Mm-hmm.
believe in when you are in alignment with, when you are tapped into your purpose, things will come smoothly. They will come easily. Like life just unfolds and you start to see the magic, you start to see the synchronicities, you start to see everything just happening in front of you. And you're like, whoa. And like one day you just kind of look back and you're like, wow, like this is why all of this happened. Like this is,
Mm-hmm.
why, and so I just think it's a beautiful thing. Like as terrible and frustrating that this reality is, and all the existential dread and existential like questioning that goes on, and how heavy it all is, it's still a really beautiful life to live, and we have to learn to embrace that
Yeah,
for
no
sure.
doubt, no doubt. I'm trying to put a damn comment in here. I'm typing like I'm
I
84.
know, literally. Oh, someone said she put me on Urugu. Yeah, Urugu's a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
It's necessary. It's a dense one, but it's definitely necessary. And shout out Mars. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a comment that came from YouTube actually talking about it was early on in the conversation. They said if corporate Zionism, I think it was around we were talking about hip hop and everything. If corporate Zionism is pushing any particular artist, shouldn't we be wary? Constructive hip hop exists, but won't easily reach the ears of at risk Black youth.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what has to happen. So the very things that they're like pushing and putting in your face, you have to question why. Why is this cool? Why is this sexy? Why is this something that they want us to agree to, especially if we know where it's coming from and who it's coming from? So we have to
Mm-hmm.
question everything. Everything in mainstream ain't good for us. So we have to think about why things like baddies get put on the air. We have to think about a lot of these things and just really understanding like what this means for us as a culture, especially understanding like the deaths of these young men and young women who are going through this industry, I think is important for us to call out and pay attention to. And then uplift and amplify and platform more underground artists who are doing the good work. Like some of my favorite people right now is JID. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Credible. Like his last album, like that was
What's
bumping
his
in my
last album?
shit.
God Don't Like Ugly? Or
Yeah, yeah. Or
okay,
God
yeah.
does like ugly or something
God
like
Does
that.
Like
But
Ugly,
like
something like that.
that song, like New Better Work, WRK, that's one of my favorite songs. Like that's like one of the motivational, get you up in the morning type. But it's like what he's talking about is incredible and is really important. But it's like really listening to lyrics, really listening to what's being said. Even like Busta Rhymes, like, and I know he got a lot going on too. Like everybody got a lot of stuff going on. Everybody got allegations and accusations, and it's just like this is too much.
Yeah.
Like but that's also the nature of our reality. Like we're not perfect. We also weren't put here to be good, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's really understanding like what these concepts are of good and evil and doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing. And it's deep. It's a deep, 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 deep conversation that needs to be had because everybody got something that we would probably be ashamed of, right, if that came to light. And
Yeah.
so really understanding like what that means or what that looks like. Obviously there are atrocities and obviously there are crimes against humanity and we should really understand what that looks like and what that means and why people are doing what they do. But if we get to the crux of what it means to heal a nation, what it means to heal a people, you have to have empathy, you have to have grace, and you have to have understanding. Like
Yeah.
that's really what comes down to. Like yes, there are cultures and tribes that would ostracize people and kick them out of the community when they did wrong. But if we're really talking about repairing harm, if we're really talking about restorative justice and things of that nature, like it does require to call them in. It
Yeah.
does require to show love. And so, what does it look like to love those who have caused harm? What does it look like to love those who have done the unthinkable and to
Mm-hmm.
do the most really disgusting things on our planet? And so understanding what it looks like to do what Jesus would have done,
Yeah.
like if that like that's the real work. So
Come
I
on.
don't I don't subscribe to cancel culture. I really don't. I believe in healing. I would
To me,
love to
that's
see healing.
anti-black. That's anti-black, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, yeah. And it's like I get it, pedophilia, sexual abuse, these things are terrible. We have to understand why it continues to happen.
Yeah.
We must understand why it continues to happen because without that, without understanding that, without showing love and giving love, because monsters create monsters and
Mm-hmm.
hurt people. We understand it. We understand it with R. Kelly. We understand with it all. So understanding how to it's preventative. How do we really create systems like we said earlier to protect children, to keep children safe, so that they
Mm-hmm.
grow up to be whole human beings.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what it all comes down. It's healing is so necessary, and so we need to start not just pointing fingers and denouncing behavior and things of that nature, but we also have to really think about the systems and the structures that are required to prevent things like this from happening, and to have safe spaces for healing and nurturing for the perpetrators and for the victims.
Come
And I
on.
think that it's a holistic approach to understanding what healing looks like in our community and beyond.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna say this one thing, and then I know Mars just posed a question that I'm sure that you
Mm-hmm.
can take on. But it really what you were describing again reminds me of that interview with James Baldwin, which I could just watch like forever. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about how you have to recognize that you could be that cop. You could be that store owner that puts the
I'll never be
whatever
that cop.
sign right. But I mean, it's the
Yeah.
recognition that like
No, I get what
that
you're saying. I was just making a joke about
oh
being
no
a cop.
bullshit. Yeah, I never. But it's like when you take yourself away from this ideology that they're just a fucked up person, but now that they exist in the context,
Mm-hmm.
where it's a common leg, everything exists in the context of that which came before it. But
Mm-hmm.
in a real way, what I'm saying, this shit isn't just like isolated. Like if you don't
Mm-hmm.
change this person, not only is it's not about change this person, it's about stopping that
Yeah,
ideology. It's about
yeah,
cutting that off so that they can't propagate that to the next person who is also easily influenced, who's seeking
mm-hmm.
community and belonging, and will cling to anything that is willing to give them that. And that's
Yeah,
why I feel like we can't turn our nose up at like certain rappers that like, yeah, it seems as though everything they say is just death, murder, sex, and violence, words to like the nigga literal song. But also within that, why are niggas fucking with that? You know what I'm saying? What is really being said beyond what people are claiming to on the surface? For some group of people, they find belonging and community in this. And it's my belief that nobody seeks I'm gonna say most people do not seek anything that is just truly about like death, destruction, madness, and mayhem. Like it is purposeful for a period of
Yeah.
time.
And it's about understanding that death, destruction, and mayhem is a natural part of life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's also, I think, a big part of it, too.
Yeah.
Is like we have this idea that the light and all these things, light and love and da da da. No, that we get back to that warrior spirit. We was causing some destruction and
Of
chaos
course.
because chaos is where all things are created. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to get into chaos theory and
Yeah.
really understanding what that is. The triple blackness of space, like it's dark and it's
Mm-hmm.
and it's death and death is life. And so
Mm-hmm.
really understanding what that means. So there is something, and so you start to get into these conversations about like the Illuminati and all these types of things, but really understanding like this intersection of these concepts, and the darkness or the evil that people think is happening. And so I think those things are really, really, really important for us to start to really unpack and make sense of, because we have this illusion that but death is a circle of life. Like that's what happens. Like there's nobody taking the lions away for killing nobody. They ain't going to jail for that.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that really look like? What does that mean when it comes down to what we really are? Like we're the only species on this planet that can't just exist as we came. We got to put clothes on. We got to do this. We got to do that because it's a sin to be naked.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so what does that mean? And so really understanding these things is, I think, really, really important.
No doubt.
So he said, how have you dealt with the dress/address mindset, especially with being of West Indian parents? So, and how Western society is, and how did you learn to truly be and find yourself? Any book recs. So I think starting with definitely coming from my household, it was like you represent this family when you step out of the
Mm-hmm.
house. It was always like dress well. And I grew up in private school, so I'm used to wearing uniforms, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain level of like appearance that you have. And I think as I got older, and I loved clothes. I loved, like, one of my worst punishments when I was in like high school was not getting my phone taken, wasn't not being able to use my card. Da, da, da. It was having my clothes taken. Okay, my mama
Mm-hmm.
said, "Okay, you ain't." But I can't remember what it was, but she was like, "Yeah, you gonna get 5 outfits."
That's
I
it.
got to pick 5 pairs of pants and 5 tops, and I had
Mm-hmm.
to mix and match for like a whole semester.
There
And
you go.
she was like, oh, she came and packed all my stuff up, took everything out of my closet, and she said, you piss me off every day. You coming down just fly, like she said, you was doing that. She said
Uh-huh.
you was doing, because we do out of necessity. Our
Yeah.
creativity flourishes,
Come
right,
on.
in restrictive environments, but it is a matter of like the materialism. And I think the more I started to understand my relationship to consumerism and style and fashion and how you're perceived, and like really breaking down, okay, why do people treat me a certain way when I look a certain way, and then they treat me differently when I don't, right? And I started to really unpack that, especially with my soccer scholarship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's like, woo, yeah, you're going to college, you're playing soccer, da, 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 right? And then you lose that, and then it's like, okay, like what you doing now, and it's like definitely a different type of vibe. And then, or
Yeah.
it's like I said, like you show up looking a certain way in a nice little pretty dress, and people like, oh, you look great, da, 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 da. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
like you don't look that way, and then it's like they treat you differently. My weight fluctuating, gaining weight, and so being in a heavier body definitely showed me a lot about the
Mm-hmm.
world and how they treat you. And then when you lose weight, then it's like, oh, everybody in your face again.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just and that's just family members, that's everybody. But
Mm-hmm.
I'd say just in general, I did come from a very loving and supportive family. It wasn't like super strict, I'd say, as like many other stories that I've heard, especially West Indian families. But I think it was just like me understanding systems and how we've been impacted by consumerism, how we've been impacted by Western society, and realizing like I don't want to participate in this, and I don't want my worth and my value to be associated with this. So even if
Mm-hmm.
you are determining my value on what I look like, or what you think I got, or what you think I don't got, that's a you thing. That ain't a me thing. And I
Yeah.
can't. And so my work, my research, and once my dissertation, you guys learn more about it. A major finding had to do with really breaking free from external validation and
Yeah.
understanding that you have to have such deep radical self-belief, which I think is what Diddy had, which allowed him to do what he did. You have to have a
Boy, did he.
radical self-belief in oneself to really understand who and what you are, despite when anyone else is trying to impose on you whatever labels are trying to place on you. So I
Mm-hmm.
know who I am. Even if you ain't seen me looking like this, you think that this is how I am, this is all of me, right? that's your loss, you know? And
Yeah.
so I even framed that in the same way. I said this on the Grits and Eggs, was that like people wouldn't even know God if they saw him standing in his face, or her
Come
or
on now.
them, you know? So it's
Preach,
really like,
Pastor. Come on.
that's just what it is. Like,
Uh-huh.
so if you ain't fucking with it, then I just, you don't know what you looking at,
You
you
don't know
know?
ball. You don't know ball.
You
But yeah, I
know?
mean, to tap in on that in a similar capacity for myself, I reflect back on people that I grew up with, and now they see me, locks, tattoos, whatever it is. Like,
Yeah.
Brandon, I never would have thought you'd have been like that. You know what I'm saying? Because like the way I grew up, like I grew up in the suburbs, but I did everything I did. All people I went to school with, I went to public school my whole life. I played sports with everybody, like from the projects and everything, and them was my people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, I sat in a similar position, like even in my small town where they thought I spoke real proper. And in a way I did, because my
Yeah.
parents showed me, never expressly, like explicitly stated it, but I saw the way they code switch, because my folks from the country. So they say shit like live, I reckon, whatever. But when they get on the phone with
Yeah.
work, oh hi, how are you doing? Yes, nice to meet you. My name is, I said, what the hell going on? You don't even talk like that. How come
Yeah.
I don't get that when
Yeah.
I call the phone? But
Yeah.
like unpacking that and having the privilege to get into
Mhm.
space again. I say it is like the first time I was talking with Amanda Seals, like favorite line from my rapper Lil Russell. He said, sometimes to see the maze, you got to make it out at first. And it's like
Mhm.
having that ability in that space to like be away from it, you then are like privileged to do those things. So for me, I never ask or task people who haven't had those privileges to immediately make those same connections, because I know I wouldn't have made them living in that. Like living there, I knew shit. The way I find value amongst my black friends, I tell them this all the time. When we was growing up, I'm like, y'all would not have fuck with me if
Mhm.
I wasn't beating y'all ass in sports. And you couldn't take that from me. Because that's where a lot of y'all got y'all shit and you weren't better than me.
Yeah.
So yeah, you might not like whatever the case may be. We might listen to
Yeah.
different shit, woo woo woo,
Yeah.
but you can't fuck me up. And
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I think like unpacking that, going back to like just like dress and style and so on and so forth, is now I can be critiqued and like, oh, you dress like this, you dress like that, whatever. You got too many tattoos. If they wanted to say that, nobody does now. They're pretty
Mhm.
accepted. But
Yeah.
now I have the degrees behind my name. I have like, so if I ask somebody some shit like, but why do you think that though? They either gonna pivot,
Yeah.
duck and dodge, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm trying to get into a space with fashion where like I wear a lot of calm shit. I just don't believe in branding companies that aren't sponsoring me. Um, but also to the avail of like, getting into thrifting, and how thrifting has even been co-opted
Yeah.
now. Like
Yeah.
how what that used to be was a practice that was liberatory, that was local and
Yeah.
communal, and now that's big business. You know what I'm
Yeah, no, that's
saying?
real. That's really real. And especially for fashion as a woman, there's a lot of fast fashion, there's a lot of this. And it's like and understanding like what these materials, especially all the plastic that's in these materials and how they're impacting our endocrine system and all these things, like
Mm-hmm.
actually physically and like biologically how they're impacting us. So like just trying to get back to like natural fabrics,
Yeah.
cotton, linen, silk, like just really
Wool.
getting into like
Mm-hmm.
wool, like just getting into real clothes. I'm like, I want some real clothes. Like I
They doing
want
that cheap
bring real
shit.
clothes back.
Doing
Like
that cheap shit. They capitalize. Everybody got a brand. They pushing a product, but the fucking
yes.
shit is about to give me sepsis. But
Yes, like all I'm doing is
um,
feeling texture. I'm like feeling fabric. Like I just
mm-hmm.
need to, yeah, and yeah. So it's tough out here. And also to kind of answer the back end of Mars's question, book recommendations. People are constantly asking for book recommendations. I have set out some book lists. I do have a couple, that I think would be helpful, but we are the book. I think we
Mm-hmm.
have to like lean into that too, and like understanding the deep work and the deep work of self and what it means to really tap in, because sometimes all this information and reading and listening to podcasts and this and that can really distract you from the work that needs to be done. And we think we're doing the spiritual work, we think we're feeding ourselves, but we're really also using that as a form of escapism, or just, I like to call it sometimes, mental masturbation. We get
Mm-hmm.
off on just, I know this, or I read this, or I seen this. But what's coming to mind right now as a book recommendation for you right now, Mars, is The Gospel of Hip Hop. I think it's an incredible one in terms of just orienting yourself to your personal purpose. And I think it's phenomenal. I think it's a phenomenal book. I think it's helpful in terms of just like really understanding like the spiritual aspects of what it means to be hip hop and how to integrate that into your life. And I think it's a great self realization framework. I think it's really, really helpful in terms of like understanding the self and knowledge of self and things of that nature. There's a couple others that have probably come to mind, but for some reason, I don't know. I just feel like that's the one I want to recommend right now.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And I know I saw one more question that's from Winston Mutt off of YouTube. He said,
Okay.
Garris won Edutainment said white
Yes.
America views us as freed slaves. Black people in America have to define themselves outside the parameters of white supremacy and assimilation dictated by oppressors. 1000%.
1
1000%.
million percent. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the work, you know. Who are we beyond these systems? Can we exist even just being calling ourselves black exist within the constraints of white supremacy?
It does. It does. And I
So
think there's a conversation because as a nigga that says nigga, there's a whole conceptual debate as to whether or not that is, demeaning, degrading at even at this point. And I think there is a conversation to be had around like once you, it's like once it's aware, once it's conscious, once it's intentional, the use and the acknowledgement of to what it means and the awareness that it came from this, but I'm still using it in this way because this is what we defined it as. Then with that intentionality, now it's something that can be, liberatory even.
yeah.
But when it's just subconscious and it's just because it's what you heard, then I think in that regard, you need to
Yes.
stop using it. I don't need to stop using it because I know what the hell I'm saying.
Yeah.
You need to stop using it.
It's self-definition. Like it's a
Yeah.
matter of self-defining and understanding who we are on our terms. And like you said, understanding the etymology of the word is incredibly important and has a
Hmm.
lot to do with intention. So yeah, they have to call us that because that's our birthright.
No
That's our
doubt.
birthright, but understanding the harm, so it's a very complex conversation,
Oh
to
yeah.
be had in terms of what that really is and what that means and the violence that's been associated with that word
Hmm. And I
or
think,
enacted through that word.
yeah, 1000%. And I think going back to nuance, and even that conversation that I was having with those men around like how you dress will be how you'll be addressed. We have to be able to sit in a space where we can acknowledge multiple truths. I completely acknowledge in your life and your experience that's probably been the case, but I want to also speak to the harm that that can have for a young black child if that's the only reality because you're
Yeah.
a grown up and you're boisterous and you're charismatic and you say this and that's ingrained into their psyche and it forever limits their ability to define how they want to
Yeah.
dress. I know because I've worn a suit. Yeah, suits are nice. I like a sweatsuit. That's
Yeah.
my shit. It's free flowing. I feel good. I feel like money. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Um, and really sitting with that and like being intentional with all these things. So
No, I think
yeah.
that's super important, especially as a woman. It's like I'm like, why all of our clothes got to be tight? Like I want to be
Hmm.
some loose, So it's like really understanding what it means, what you're most comfortable in. Like I said, not dressing for the male gaze, like really dressing in the ways that are meaningful for you, or and really embody your self expression and things of that nature are really important. And I also wanted to say shout out Amanda Seals when you mentioned her. I
Yeah.
had the opportunity to attend her book talk for
Come
What Would the
on.
Ancestors Say.
Yeah.
Incredible, and it was my first time being able to witness and see her and her sharing her gift with us. Incredible. Like she has a light, like
Hmm.
like there's just like that energy on people, and like she really got that. And it's really disappointing to me that people have treated her the way that they have, especially like on this online space, or don't really see what it is that she's doing. I
Yeah.
think she's really providing us a very clear framework, and we're watching her in real time do this to say,
Yeah.
hey, I don't want to participate in this system. I'm doing it my way and I'm doing what it is that I know to be true. And she stands on that. She stands 10 toes. And I respect the hell out of that. And
Hmm.
I'm really grateful, that she's able to provide, a pathway and an example of what that looks like. So I definitely wanted to say shout out to her when you mentioned that, because
Yeah.
I, had the opportunity to sit and watch and listen and to really see what it is that she does. And that was just like a small glimpse of her. I'm certain, based on like her one woman show and all the things that she does, but it's an incredible example of what it looks like to resist and to embody resistance, especially, trying to, make money in what you do
Hmm.
and how you create sustainable systems for yourself. But I think if people really pay attention and listen to what she's saying, you can learn a lot, not just about social systems and, what it means to fight for the revolution and things of that nature, but really how to structure your business or your orientation around how you show up in the world. I think is really important.
Yeah, 1000%. And I think with Amanda, she is the exception in that she did it. She lived the industry life and she was deep in Hollywood and ingrained into those things and has had like a second life or is having a second life right now as an activist, as a voice in the movement. That's truly like you said, standing 10 toes on it. So,
Yeah.
all I'm saying is shout out to Amanda. You need to get the self-love doc on Amanda Seals. I'm pushing
I
the
would be
narrative.
honored.
I'm pushing it. I'm pushing the narrative. So I will put in a good word. But yeah. And I think I'd love to like save a little more time if anybody else has any questions or comments or whatever.
Yeah, who's in here? Hey y'all, any questions? This was fun. This was a really great conversation. I'm excited to like watch it back. I'm nervous to watch it back because you had me rapping at one point. I was like, I don't
No,
even know
you was
what
cooking.
I
You was cooking. Shout out to JID. And it's like I peeped
Yeah.
that. You know what I'm saying? It's like a rhythm to the way we talk, to the shit we got going on,
Hmm.
and that, you can see that in these type of
Yeah.
conversations when you write rhymes,
Yeah.
whatever it is, it's the same shit. It's working the same
Yeah,
muscle.
it really is. And I started to realize like poems are coming out of me like spiritually, like writing in a way where like my hand don't even feel like it's a thing writing. It's just like coming and it's like, okay, now what
Mm-hmm.
do I do with this? Like where is
Yeah,
this going, you know? But it's a spiritual thing. Like what we do artistically, what we do academically, you know, how we show up, it's deeply spiritual work that we're all participating in.
yeah. No doubt, no doubt. But y'all, I want to give y'all some time, go a couple more seconds, see if anybody tap in, any questions or anything. But
Yeah.
yeah, this won't be the only time. It's not a standalone conversation. Hopefully,
Yeah.
we can do this whenever the time finds it. But uh yeah, man, I appreciate y'all tapping in. I think the live feature like duality was great too, kind of
Yeah, it
having
was
that element
fun.
as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and also I saw somebody, it's live, so sometimes people be requesting to join just to like, promote a
Uh-huh.
body oil or something. But at some point we could like incorporate something where
Bring
we do
people
have an
up.
element where
Yeah.
like, hey, y'all come on, we kind of like free space just to talk, kick it and all that. So if
Yeah.
y'all would fuck with that, we can do that potentially next time, and
Yeah.
yeah, rock out.
I like that. Yeah. It's dope.
Yeah. But I ain't seeing nobody tap in. So I guess for right now, okay, yeah. Appreciate you.
Yes.
Is it
Little
live, bro,
fro
baby? Little
baby.
bro, baby. Appreciate you.
Yes, thank you. This was so
Absolutely.
fun. I think it's a great conversation and conversations that need to be had. So,
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and come on, Mars. Appreciate you for sure.
yes, thank you. Thank you.
And yeah, we'll fuck with y'all next time.
Yeah, see you next
Peace.
time.
Okay, smooth. And I'm gonna go ahead and end this live. Thank you, Winston. They just said beautiful conversation. I thank God I saw you on Amanda. Hey, thank God for you being there. You know what I'm saying? And it's all there. It's all there. So yeah, appreciate y'all, man.